So first of all, thank you so much, Jack. I think there's just tons of relativity between what you shared and what so many of us go through. So what we want to do is we want to bring up a couple body shops from different areas of the country who are going to join Jack on stage and just react a bit to some of the things he shared and talk a little bit about their own businesses. So I'd like to welcome up locally here from Denver, Colorado, Robert Grieve with Nyland's Collision. The gentleman who helped put this together and kind of make the introductions, Jeff Calamine with Calamine Collision in Illinois. And one of SCRS's newest board members, Matthew McDonald with Big Sky Collision in Montana.
Thanks, Jeff.
And we're going to have a bit of an unscripted panel here, an unmoderated panel, where it's basically just going to be these four gentlemen talking through their thoughts and reactions to the presentation. But we also want to encourage, if you have your own thoughts, your own input, or your own additions to the conversation, please step up to the microphone, make sure you announce who you are, and feel free to ask any of the four gentlemen a question or make your own commentary. We hope that this opens into a bit of collaborative discussion. So with that, Matthew, I'm going to turn it to you to kick off the conversation.
All right. Oh, good. We're mic'd up. So I guess I'll just introduce myself. Matthew McDonald, Big Sky Collision Center in Billings, Montana. I just want to relate something I thought that was so cool. A lot of times we don't get to brag about ourselves to our commitment to excellence or the right cause. And so you guys, that video was such a heart tugger, and it made me realize that we probably need to be a little bit better about sharing what we do for the right cause, having the right employees, investing in them, investing in the equipment, investing in the training, and we forget to tell that to people, I believe. And so how do you get that message out? And I think that's super important for us to relate to you. How do we get that message out?
Yeah, I tell you, my advice, no matter how big, no matter how small your business is, I think starting with a vision, could be a very humble vision, is important because people want to work for something bigger than themselves. Yes, people work for a paycheck. You've got to pay the bills. We've got rent, we've got mortgage, we've got car payments and things like that. But when there's something bigger than themselves, and if that something bigger stands for higher level of quality, if it stands for trust, I will tell you from somebody that doesn't know your business, and I'm not a mechanic, I'm very insecure when I'm bringing my car in. And so when I find somebody that I can trust, and trust can happen in a lot of ways. Trust can be transparency. Like when I go to a shop, especially with my babies, and they take me back and they're showing me things I've never seen before, and they'll take the time to educate. When I go to the place that I take my cars to, they'll talk to me for as long as I want to talk. I don't know if I'm paying for that in the hourly rate or not. I'm just not sure how that gets billed. But I'm learning along the way. I'm getting to know them. I'm getting to know their family. I get to know, that their wife was in the hospital recently. And so there's a bonding that happens, when you stand for something bigger. And the place that I bring my car to, this is the vintage cars, the muscle cars. They have something special going there. I don't even know if they have a vision on the wall, but I just think every single business can have a purpose, something that's bigger than themselves. It could be super, super humble, but employees and people and customers will rally around that if it's true, if it's real.
Jack, I had a question I wanted to ask you as well. Jeff Calamine from the Chicagoland area. I'm fourth generation body shop owner.
Jeff knows my son Matt.
Yep, friends
through
with
Tesla.
Matt. Yeah. Your employees seem to be overly friendly when I go in and have my good experience. And one of my things I noticed is, do you have like a coordination test for these employees? Because I can get through the line, even if you're busy, in about a minute's time, and everybody's bop, 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 and what do you have? And it's like watching a drummer or something,
We don't have coordination tests, but you know what we do? We do try to hire people that care. We do try to hire people that really understand, or when they've heard about the purpose for the first time, that they care about it. People will work hard if they believe in what they're doing. So when you're in a restaurant and somebody's very energetic and they're working like a well-oiled machine, that means we've got a great leader in that restaurant. We've got a leader that's embraced the Chipotle purpose, that's hired people that are like-minded in the way they're thinking about it, that he's trained them very, very well. A great way to invest in people is to train them. There's nothing worse than working a job where you're insecure about the job. You're not sure if you're doing the right job because nobody really trained you. And listen, that happens in our business too, where we hire somebody and they're just put on the line, and the experience isn't going to be good for the employee, not going to be good for the customer. So I think if you have either as leaders yourself or the managers that you have in your businesses, if you've got people that are on the same page, they're buying into whatever you've defined as the purpose, and then they hire people who are like-minded and then invest in them with training, God, people will work really hard for you. Now, if you just tell people work hard and you kick them in the ass every now and then, keep kicking them and they'll keep working hard. You leave and you go down for lunch or something like that, their energy level, their work ethic is going to drop dramatically. So for us, it's all about hiring the right people, the people that really have bought into something bigger than just the job itself, and then have them led by great leaders that can really inspire them to be an important part of a bigger purpose.
Cool. Good morning. I'm Rob Grieve from Nyland's Collision Center, right here in Denver. And I have watched a couple of your presentations. You're brilliant. Appreciate you.
Thank you. But I'm not. Just ask my kids.
Yeah, mine too. You had talked, and you touched on it a little bit today, but you talked at another presentation that you did a little bit more of your menu and how simple it is. And if I remember correctly, it's designed simply so that we can get the people to do what they need to do without making it rocket science.
Right. Listen, you're dead on. One of the ways I mentioned that we look for efficiencies in ways other than reducing the cost of our food. That's the last thing you want to do. That's the thing that takes value directly away from a customer. So what we've done is we've kept it simple. Now there's a lot of handwork that goes on before the doors ever open. We typically don't open till officially 11 o'clock. We'll open early if people start mulling around 10:45. But our folks come in at 7:30 or 8 o'clock to do all the prep work. And so there's a lot of skilled work that has to happen with a knife and grilling the meats and making the guacamole. And the guacamole's delicious. I mean, I'm totally addicted to it, and it's because it's made from real ingredients and it's made every single day. And so by the time everyone's done with the prep and the food's ready to go, it is a very simple model where if everyone's well trained and they're making eye contact, they're energetic, and they're led by a manager that believes in them, they will give a great experience because they all work like a team. Now, if one of them's kind of a mope, okay, so hopefully you don't see this very often. If you got one person that's not bought in or hasn't been trained, it screws the whole thing up. But if you've got 5 or 6, however many people are at our front line, and if they're all energetic and they're all happy to be there and they've all been trained, it is a well-oiled machine. In fact, the fastest restaurant we have in the country can serve 300 people in an hour in the exact same line that you see. Now that's one every 12 seconds. Okay, now think about making a burrito, having the customer pay cash or pay credit card, and have them every 12 seconds, there's another one, and another one, and another one. And when you see a video of this, you'd think the employees would be flying all over the place. They're not. They're exactly how you describe. They're just kind of doing their thing and passing it on. What happens is the movement is the customers, the line's moving. But the team itself, they're all doing their role. It's like the Patriots. You know how the Patriots are good about, they take role players and they turn them into stars because they put them into a system that really works, and they know their role. And I don't know the players that often. I'm more of a Bear fan, but they always have this quick little end that fits into the system. Tom Brady finds them. It cuts through the middle, and they get rid of that guy because he's too expensive. They bring another one, and then another one. So when the system works and you bring the right people and they know their role, beautiful things can happen. And I'm sure it's the same with your business. Matt, my son used to tell me when he first worked for, I'm not going to say the dealer, but it was one of the foreign manufacturers, not Tesla, and he wanted to work harder. He wanted to do more, and the more he wanted to do, the more they put him off. If there were 10 jobs and there were 3 guys, Matt would do 5 of them. And he kept going to his bosses and saying, God, I really want to do more. I think I can do more. And they're like, yeah, I'll get back to you. He finally would tap the master mechanic on the shoulder and say, can I help you out with your job? And so now he's doing master mechanic stuff at his supervision, closely supervised, making, I don't know, $9-10 an hour. He was telling me, though, that the master mechanic's making a fortune because he gets paid by the job, and Matt's doing a lot of the job. So he could do a second job while Matt was helping. The point is, here's a kid that really bought into the role. He was fresh out of tech school. He wanted to do more. Eventually, he quit. And eventually ended up at Tesla because there wasn't a system there to satisfy this young guy's appetite. And I suspect it's a challenge in today's world, too. I don't know how many kids are coming out of tech school, but if you get somebody that loves cars, and he's always loved cars, he was a kid when everyone had their electric remote control cars. He got I think it was nitro-powered electric car, and he would take that thing apart and put it back together, and he was 8 years old or 10 years old, and I'd walk up and go, Matt, what are you doing? He goes, get out of here, Dad. He knew I didn't know what I was talking about. But here's a kid that had a passion, and if you find people like that have a passion in the industry, and then you have a leader that can pull that passion out, oh my God. I mean, imagine a team of people that want to do that much, work that hard, and you have a leader that's just constantly challenging them so you can satisfy their appetite. So anyway, Matt would be embarrassed if he heard me tell this story, but anyway.
So the reason I asked that question about your menu and
Yes.
having it limited
Yes.
is it's brilliant in the fact that you can have these people learn to do these things, and that's what they need to focus on. Our business is going exactly the opposite direction. Every single car that comes through is getting more and more advanced. There's more and more places you got to look for how is it the manufacturer wants this vehicle fixed. And for me, we have 100 cars on the lot right now. And they're Lexuses and BMWs and Mercedes and Audis and Subarus and everything else. And it's almost every single one of those cars needs to be fixed a different way. And
Wow.
we're making it more and more, not us, I mean, we have to deal with it, but manufacturers are making it more and more complex for safety reasons, all good reasons. But it's putting a big challenge on us. And you also have other restaurants. Instead of expanding your menu,
Right.
you went outside and said, okay, we want to do this thing, but you made it a different entity. And then you made another different entity. You have an Italian, and what else?
We have pizza. We did have one burger joint, but we decided to abandon that. And we had an Asian, and I think that's it. But listen, I get your question. It's a great one. Maybe somebody from the audience has an idea. I'll tell you one thing that has worked for Chipotle is when we've innovated. I mean, it's the insight you're bringing is exactly dead on. That rather than add a bunch of things to the menu, which would overcomplicate what we do, and it would slow down the line, it would mean the food would be sitting longer, and it wouldn't be as fresh or wouldn't be as tasty. Our innovation would take place through a separate restaurant, and so that restaurant will focus on burgers, and that restaurant will focus on pizza. And there's some great pizza down the road, Pizza Locale, that we've got a couple restaurants here. I come from Chicago where we have great pizza, but this pizza is out of this world. So we've chosen to more, I guess, specialize, so that we didn't want to be all things to all people. Yeah, because restaurants, if you look at a menu today, it's very complicated. If you go into a McDonald's or Taco Bell, there's menu items all over the place. Now, what that means is you have to have all that food come in already processed. Okay, you can't make all that food from scratch. It just won't last. And so we've chosen the specialty route. And I don't know how to solve that in your business, whether you can specialize or not. I suspect you have to.
Well, you did.
You have to do a wide range of cars.
You gave me the idea.
Yeah.
I think what's going to happen is we're going to start pairing off brands and specialize in standalone facilities for those brands and get those people to understand this vehicle
Yeah.
to the very, very best.
Yep.
And
Southwest has one airplane, one kind of airplane. So the mechanics know how to
fix it.
fix one plane. Their pilots know how to fly one plane. Everyone knows how to fly one plane. They've chosen a business model that was going to be very, very focused. They simplified things such that now they can focus on-time service, customer service, really authentic customer service, and the things that they stand for. And so I think it can also get back to a vision. If your vision is to be the collision choice for every single brand. Now you have to build a business model around how do you acquire that talent, how do you train that talent, or maybe you want to be the best possible collision shop for the German cars or the American cars or something like that. But it's hard to be great at everything. The Patriots probably won't win the World Series. Maybe they will. But this world is turning into where people turn into real specialists, and when you're a real specialist and you have real passion for what you're doing, you can do some extraordinary things. It's hard to be all things to all people.
True story.
So I love your comparison to the Patriots. I'm not a Patriots fan, but
I'm not either.
we compare ourselves to the Patriots in the fact that we love to study. And so our business model is different. We're not focused on fixing cars. We're focused on fixing people, developing leaders. And so a lot of similarities in what you do. But I think we all want to better our people, have the best equipment, fix the best repair, have the highest quality. But how do we match, and I ask this question, how do we, like you, do all those things and remain profitable? Because it's expensive to invest in people. It's expensive to invest in the quality. Where do we find this magic sauce that you guys have found?
See, I wish I knew more about your business model. I don't know that I can answer that, to be honest. Maybe there's somebody from the audience that has figured some of it out. You're intriguing me, though. It makes me want to maybe show up at Tesla someday and look and see how things. Although they lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
So maybe they're not the right model. So I just don't know enough about your business, to be honest. The thing that I think Chipotle benefited from is it had this purpose. The reason why I took you through that long story before I showed you a set of numbers was we had an identity, and that identity was so core to who we were that the business model along the way was built to support that identity, to support that purpose. I'm sorry, I just don't know enough about your business. It is a challenge, though. I would tell you that one thing that you'll never regret is hiring and keeping the best people you can.
Got it.
And
True story.
I guess the corollary to that is you'll never regret removing somebody who's not a great employee either. If you have 3 great employees and 2 mediocre employees, those mediocre employees will repel the great ones. And so I think no matter what you do, no matter what cars you repair, no matter how big your business is, I think if you continue to attract great performers, ambitious people who want to learn, and repel, and sometimes it means making some tough choices. When you have somebody that's been around a long time and they're a little sour, that sourness rubs off, on the good ones. And that sourness eventually is going to cause the good ones to leave. And so that's something that we found is if you have in a restaurant of 20 or 25 employees, if you have one bad one, not only is it nobody wants to work with that person, they think management doesn't know or management's dumb, and they feel underappreciated because it's like, why am I working so hard every day to cover for the person that's just mailing it in? And so it has all kinds of negative connotations, negative side effects. And so I think no matter what you do, keep the best and periodically go through and make sure you're not keeping the worst. I promise you. And you know how you find out who the worst are? First of all, you guys know. Second of all, talk to your people. They'll tell you. Just sit down and, during lunch or something, or say, hey, how's it going? How's the new guy doing? Just ask them, and you'd be shocked at how much they'll tell you if you just ask them. And in fact, get ready for the floodgates, though, because if you haven't ever asked them, first time you ask them, you're going to get an earful. So, any questions from the audience? Yeah.
So Mark Olson, Vico Experts. So, when you walk into a Chipotle, by the way, I've never been to a Chipotle until I get back to my
pick up
home.
your envelope on the way out.
No, actually, I will go now.
Good.
Now that I know what your mission is, I've just driven by them. So thank you for that.
Where are you from?
Portland, Oregon.
Okay, we got plenty.
I know. Drive by them all the time. So you've built an amazing culture. 2,500 stores, there's no way you couldn't have. How much money or time or budget line do you spend on onboarding a new employee? So somebody comes in, they're fresh out of the blocks, whatever. What does it take for you to get somebody to the level that they're bleeding Chipotle?
Yeah, it's a great question. And And we have two paths for people that are going to lead at Chipotle that are going to be, we call them a general manager. One is we will hire somebody from the outside that's got other restaurant experience. And it varies. It depends on how long they've been a manager, how competent they are. But we would put them through an intense training that would probably be in the 8-week or so time frame. Now, even when they're trained, they're still a rookie. Okay, they don't know all the ropes. They've been trained to do everything. They've had hands-on training, they've had classroom training, but then they have an area manager as well, and we have an area manager for about every 7 restaurants or so. And so a good area manager will make sure that not only are they touching base with that up-and-coming general manager during their training to see how it's going, what are they picking up, talk to others and find out how's it going. Does it seem like this person's going to be a good leader? Are they catching on? What are they missing? When they come out, they've got to keep a close eye on them as well, because they're still learning even when they come out. And so I would say before somebody gets really good, it's probably at least a year. Okay, so it's 8 weeks of training, and that's knowing how things work at Chipotle. But I would say it's probably a year before they are really good and they know everything in the restaurant, and they're great with their people and they're great with the customers. They know their customers. One great thing about any business, I'm sure this is the same with yours, the more you know your customers, when they know you by name and you come in. Now, with you guys, if you have a customer come in all the time, they've got a driving problem. So, but maybe they've got kids that that you're seeing them come in all the time. But so that's it for somebody come from the outside. Internally, it varies dramatically. We would often hire somebody at the crew level, and somebody at the crew level could make it up to a manager in a couple years or so. And so we would take somebody that's a 19-year-old coming in, an hourly worker, and within a couple years, if they have the ambition, if they have the aptitude, they could be a GM within a couple years and make good money, $50,000, all the benefits and things like that. So we would do things like that. So it varies depending on which track you're going to take.
So you're a CFO.
Yes.
So you know your numbers like crazy, I would hope.
I hope.
Yeah. So what on a percentage level of sale dollar are you spending on training?
Yeah, we don't have it as a separate line on it, but we
Okay.
figure for a crew person, we're
Yeah.
probably, and a crew person, by the way, they're trained within a matter of hours and days.
Yeah.
I mean, if we hire somebody this morning, they're going to be doing something, maybe the simplest task, that very next shift, and then they'll gradually move on from there. We figure when we lose a crew employee, we're probably losing $4,000 to $5,000, something like that.
Got it.
When we lose a manager, we're probably losing, depending on where we lost them in the process, probably losing $15,000. It's incredibly expensive.
So
And our turnover-
$4,000 for a low level, $15,000 for another?
Yes,
Got
very
it.
expensive.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
and
guys
that's-
are
and that's the
probably
cost of your training, yeah.
You guys are probably even higher than that.
It is.
Because you won't get somebody who's unskilled, to be actually producing that first day. It's going to take much longer, unless you get them out of a technical school, maybe. But yeah, I'm sure your investment in people is much greater.
Yeah. Great.
So
Thank you.
keeping them, it's got to be key, I'm sure.
Dave Gruskis, SCRS board member. One thing I just have to, I had never eaten at a Chipotle.
Oh, these new customers,
No,
I love it.
I just, in the diversity of my own family, I would have my son at college in the South, my daughter a PhD in chemistry in New York, my brother-in-law working for the government in a very high level. Everybody wanted Chipotle, and it was.
I love it.
It still is to this day.
You have a smart family.
You have an incredible trust in your brand with the people who eat your food.
Thank you.
So as a compliment, I'm amazed you could have built such an amazing trust through such a vast demographic. It's not like just a young kid, it's everyone. When you went through your Rocky time,
Yes.
incident, whatever you want to call it, when we see something like that, how true is what we're reading? Is it 50% BS? Is it 7? Like what? Of course, they really came down on you guys like a cannon. I mean,
Yeah, God, it's hard to put a percentage. I would say there is incorrect information in almost every article that's written. I would say in terms of what they got right, they got the main facts largely right. We did have E. coli come into our system. Probably the worst thing about the way it was portrayed is it made it seem like it kept coming. We to this day don't know where it came from because it came in and was gone so fast. We literally did thousands of tests in the restaurants that we had an incident. Tested all the food. We tested all the surfaces. None of our employees, by the way, got sick. Not one in any of these restaurants. And we give employees free food, and so they're eating our food all the time. So we don't know the source of it. because it was never there. We could never find a source. It was about 52 people that became ill, but the way that probably the most egregious or the most damning thing that happened was it made it seem like, oh, it's another case, and so it's still happening. It's another case, it's still happening. When it really was a very discrete period of time. Whatever came in through our ingredients, it came through, and some people got sick. But I would say in terms of the media, you guys probably see the same thing. You know, you guys are dealing with some of the, the CNN stuff. I'll bet when you look at the CNN stuff, I'll bet there's some mistruths in there. And I would say almost every article, probably 90%, has something wrong with it. So I think they probably get maybe 60 to 75% of the story right. They get the main stuff right, but all the stuff on the fringes and their tone and stuff like that, they often get that wrong.
But again, I just want to compliment, it's an amazing, amazing trust you have in your consumers.
Thank you. And we have a trust gap there that we're going to work really hard to build back up.
Well,
But thank you for the
being here very
comments.
much.
Appreciate that.
My name is Livia Grenari. I'm the OEM Network Director for Subaru Certified Collision. I have 2 questions for you.
Okay.
The first one is, do you recognize your stores for exemplary performance? And if so, how do you tie that back to your corporate philosophy?
Okay. So the question, I think if I heard it was a little hard to hear, is do we recognize individual stores for great performance?
Thank you. Yes. Do you
We do.
recognize the stores for exemplary performance? And then tying it back to your corporate philosophy, where do you make the connection? How do you do that?
You know, we do. We grade our restaurants, and we grade them all on kind of the grade school, A, B, C, D, and F. And the measurements, there's 4 or 5 main measurements. A few of them deal with customer satisfaction. One of them deals with the financials. Another one deals with people. People meaning what's your turnover? Are you fully staffed? So have you trained a full management staff? And then there's a food safety component as well. The restaurants that do the best job and maintain that, they get to achieve something called Restaurateur. And Restaurateur is it's the top 20 to 25% in our company. There's some financial awards, some equity awards as well. You can get stock when you reach this level as well. So it's a very elite award once you get to that level. We also tie our folks just on a regular basis to quarterly bonuses as well. So the restaurants that are doing the best in terms of customer satisfaction, building sales, and then delivering at or above planned margins, they also get incentive pay as well.
Okay, and the second question is, you talked about losing the trust in 2015 and building that back up. So did you learn anything from that? If you were to go back and do it differently, would you do it differently? And then can you share anything about re-earning that trust and what works and what doesn't in a network after you've lost, the trust?
Yes, just to repeat, because I don't know how well you can hear it back there, did we learn anything about, what happened in 2015, and then what are we going to do to rebuild trust? We learned a ton. One thing that's going to be a huge advantage for Chipotle is because we didn't know what happened, we didn't know which ingredient included the E. coli, we had to pretend like every ingredient included it. And so we went through with our suppliers and in the restaurant and in every way, and we've hired food safety experts throughout the country. We now have a food safety council. We pretended like every single ingredient was the culprit, and so we changed everything that we do. And so it was important to us. I shared with you the heritage and why Chipotle is what it is today. Having this high quality, this fresh food and real cooking was so important to us. And so we wanted to make sure, rather than give up on that and become like every other restaurant company, we wanted to make sure we became not only leaders in sourcing, but leaders in food safety as well. So we learned a lot about, we were above industry standards, but we went way above now. And so we believe over time that other restaurants that want to mimic or want to emulate the Chipotle model will come to us, and we'll gladly open up our books and show them what we've done to make sure every single ingredient is fresh. Because this is an industry-wide problem. Just like trust in your industry is important, if they don't trust one of you, they might not trust any of you. Okay? If they have a bad experience with one collision shop, they might feel like you can't trust any of them. And so that's, I'd say, the biggest learning that we had from back then. Going forward, what we need to do is we need to control the narrative rather than have media. We need to have marketing that talks more about our food, talks more about why Chipotle is special. You will see, I believe, more experimentation with new menu items. And it will still be with our ingredients. But for example, nachos. I mean, who doesn't eat nachos? Well, we have chips, and we have queso, and we have salsa, and we have meat. We have all the makings of nachos, yet we don't have nachos on our menu. Okay, now one of the reasons, to your point before, is the order, if you go through the line and now ordered it, chips are at the end of the line, and some of the ingredients are at the front of the line. But that's a problem we can solve. And so I think what you'll see is we'll come up with new reasons and new messages and new communication with our customers to try to get them back. Let me give you an analogy, and I hope this isn't off color, but if you have a married couple and one spouse cheats on the other spouse, if the cheating spouse just goes back and continually says, I'm sorry, I won't do it again. I'm sorry, I won't do it again. I'm sorry, I won't do it again, probably going to make very little progress. If they do things to show how much they value this person and how much they can be trusted, it might start with buying flowers or buying a muscle car, depending on which way it goes. It should manifest itself in actions as well, like doing the little things that matter, like one spouse likes to go to movies on Friday, the other one doesn't. Guess what? Go to movies on Friday. One spouse doesn't like doing the dishes all the time, you do the dishes. I mean, you do things to rebuild the trust and show that you care. We've got to do the same thing. We've been saying what we're doing to try to make sure our food is safe. Customers don't want to hear what you've done about, making sure your food is safe. What they want a reason to come back. When they come back, they'll forget about it, and that's what our hope is. Now, we have had a lot of media over the years, and so it's not going to happen overnight. But we're in this for the long term. We started this food with integrity thing back in the early 2000s. We did it before it was profitable, before it was fashionable, and so we're a company that thinks long term. And by the way, our financial position, again, as a CFO, I should have mentioned, our balance sheet, we have no debt. Never had debt before, and so we control our own destiny, and we have no franchise stores. Most restaurant companies have franchisees, and so it's tough to navigate through challenges when you have other investors and other constituents. We own all of our restaurants, and so we can make the moves that we think are best for the short term as well as for the long term, and so we're going to bet on the long term. Okay, thank you for your questions.
My name's Herb Lieberman, and I'm with LKQ Corporation. And my question number one is, how do you get this information out to the public so that they begin to give your corporation the respect that it really deserves? My second question is, your stock is selling at twice the PE as McDonald's. Now that's a big difference. What is your company doing to pay these people back for their confidence in your company and their investment in your company, which is at a rate twice that of McDonald's?
Great question. That's what I think our new leadership, with Brian coming on board, he's a branding guy. He's a former marketing guy. We brought in a new marketing person as well, and I think we can do a much better job. Now, I don't think you'll ever, or I hope you'll never see Chipotle be the type of company that brags a lot. We were always doing these things because it was the right thing to do, and then we would have things like videos like that would inspire people to be more curious, and we think that's a great way to do it. I think we could be more aggressive. I think we can get the word out much greater. I think on employment, for example, you're right. People should feel good about when they go to a restaurant that we're offering things like healthcare to every single employee who wants it. We also offer education assistance as well to every single employee, hourly or salaried. That combined with online and tuition reimbursement, they get a 4-year degree for a matter of a few $1,000, which, listen, we know what college is like. My fifth just finished college. College is very, very expensive these days, and so, but we could do a better job with that, and I expect over the next year, with this new leadership, you will see that. So that's a great financial question, and so I'm going to try to hit it on a few different levels. There's two main reasons why Chipotle does and will probably continue to trade at a higher multiple than McDonald's. First of all, McDonald's now is, it franchises most of its restaurants, okay? We run more Chipotles in the US than McDonald's does. They've got 13 or 14,000 restaurants. They only run about 1,500. We run 2,400. When you are a franchise, you basically collect a largely fixed fee, okay? And so it's a lower fee than if you run your own restaurants, okay? But it's a fixed fee. So it's a very steady income stream. So a company like McDonald's is going to trade more like a bond than it will a real stock. Now our stock is more volatile. In fact, if you watch it, I mean, it's not for the faint of heart. And because we have the entire P&L like you guys do, every time we get an additional $1 of sales, okay, we earn 50 cents in incremental cash flow. Okay, you guys must have a similar ratio as well, because once you cover your fixed costs, like the rent and the salaried managers and the real estate tax and things like that. Now you're dealing with variable costs, and so because we own all of our restaurants, every incremental dollar, okay, even though our returns were about 19, okay, every incremental dollar we make about 50%. McDonald's will still make about 15%. And so when we have upside ahead of us, we will be able to grow at a faster rate. And that's really the last point is we have 2,400 restaurants. We think we can at least double that. We only have a dozen restaurants in Europe. We have a couple dozen in Canada. And so we've got a much greater growth trajectory. So when you take a mature company that their growth is slowed versus a younger company that's got a lot of growth, they typically, the latter, will typically have a higher multiple. So thank you for the question.
My name is Tim Ronick. I'm a national board member with SCRS. And Jack, thank you very much for coming and spending your morning with us. We truly appreciate that. It's been a wonderful experience so far. I guess the thing that resonated with me with your presentation was trust. And that not only is trust a moral obligation, but there can be a significant financial reward or a financial consequence in breaching that trust. And through your answers and through the presentation, I noticed that not only is that trust based on the integrity of your ingredients and the company philosophy to steer towards that, but also you've become an employer of choice of sorts through building a trust relationship with your employees, providing uniform benefits throughout the employment ecosystem for yourself. We share some parallels, which I was really, it was interesting to see. One of the parallels is you have a high level of trust in terms of food safety, and we have a high level of trust needed in terms of vehicular safety, and that making sure that we put people back into a safe vehicle once it's been repaired. Now, I'm assuming you don't drive muscle cars every day, because you would be horrible to put that in the winter and the snow and the salt. You got to go buy a new car for that, right?
They're tucked away for the winter.
Correct. So I'm assuming you drive a car that's probably less than 1 or 2 years old and is probably loaded with all kinds of safety equipment. As a consumer, my question to you is, what could you give as insight with someone who really values trust, both from the core of their operation and their professional life, to the collision repairers that are in this room, in terms of insight as to how they need to approach a repair on that vehicle that you trust to take your family to and from all of its activities?
Yeah, I mean, I hope it's okay if I answer this as a customer.
That's how I want you to answer it.
Okay, good, because that I can do. I can't tell you how much trust is important to me because I am a guy that doesn't, and I don't do what you do. I don't do what my son does, and so I need to trust. There's two ways that I can think of that trust would manifest itself with me. One is on a personal level, and so that's getting to know you as the business leader and you spending time with me such that you're sharing with me, not in a way to get more of my business, sharing with me knowledge that will help me be a better decision maker. You're investing in me. When I see that happening, whether it's you or one of your folks, I see you investing in me not because you're making more money, because you just spent 20 minutes with me explaining something. That's not going on the bill, okay, because that's not part of the repair bill. But you're investing in me so that I will know more, and that you're, by the way, probably piquing my curiosity. Once I know a little bit, I'm going to ask a few more questions. And so if you keep investing in that curiosity and that knowledge, that's going to build trust. And listen, knowledge will help as well. The more, just like I said, the more customers knew about all the supply chains, ours versus others, the better they'd appreciate us. If you stand for quality, you want your customers to know as much as possible. The other one is, I read Aaron, something that Aaron sent along to me. There is some certification that I don't remember what it is, where there is a level of certification that you have to get to, and I'm sorry if I'm fumbling for what that is. The idea of having common standards, because the thing I might worry about is I might go to your shop and you might do it to your standards. I might go to another shop and they do it to a different standard. Not that I can't trust your shop any more or less than the other, but when I know that the standards are up here, as opposed to, listen, I saw that CNN piece, and it'd be horrifying to think I'm going to put one of my kids into a car where we're using secondhand parts, and if it's not cosmetic, that'd be horrifying. So as a consumer, I would think there's two ways that I'd want to, one on a personal basis, you show that you're investing time in me and you're going to satisfy my curiosities, but two, to broadcast or somehow get the word out. Somebody wisely asked the question, how do we get the word out about what Chipotle does for its employees and, food safety and things like that. I would say the same thing. The certification, I didn't realize existed until I saw this stuff from Aaron. So I think the more that, I don't know if you guys have a co-op where you guys advertise. I don't know how you can get the word out, but I think the more people know, okay, that seal is a seal of approval. I know if I go there, I'm getting the real parts. I'm getting new parts. It's not going to be those weak parts. As a customer, those are the two things I would look for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Billy Wilkowiak with Collision Safety Consultants, and I want to thank you for coming out today, Jack. When I first saw your name, I was like, what's a guy from Chipotle going to talk about to the collision industry? And what struck a nerve was the video. And Timothy talked about a bunch of the stuff I was just getting ready to talk about. But I wanted to ask Matthew and Rob, who I know personally, and I don't know the other gentleman on the board, but SCRS and the shops that I know want to prepare a car back to pre-loss condition, or repair it to the safety standards. And that video right there showed, the hogs that were being treated with steroids, the chickens that were being caged, going to a kinder, gentler approach of a better product. And you didn't mention Chipotle, as you said. But I think SCRS and the people that buy into SCRS and that buy into what the industry, I think, is trying to do, which is perform proper repair procedures, put OEM parts on, and make sure that thing's crash-worthy, and then it responds the way the OEMs are supposed to. And I wanted to ask Matthew and Rob and the other board member, what can we do as an industry to put out something exactly what Chipotle did, to say, we are out for the consumer. We're wanting to repair your car the way we would put our children in it, the way we put our family in it, not the way someone's going to try and dictate to us how we repair your vehicle. Because I don't think the consumer knows. I mean, I've only been in the industry like 9 years. I didn't know before that. I thought if someone sent me to a shop and picked me up in a car and sent it back to be fixed, it was done. And that's probably the reception that you would have.
That's what I assume.
Yeah, the consumers don't know. And I know Rob spends a lot of time on Facebook like I do, trying to educate consumers through our Facebook and business page and stuff like that. But I think, like what Jack said, a co-op of just doing an ad on or something about, are you taking to your car to a car that has your family in mind? Are they fixing your car for you, or are they fixing it for somebody else? Who's the ultimate? Now, I really don't have a question except for to Matthew and Rob, the board, is how can the industry, not just me, but body shop owners, our partners, the manufacturers that make the benches and the data suppliers and the estimating software, how can we all get together to educate the consumer on safe repairs to make sure that the body shops are compensating for fixing the cars the way they're supposed to?
Great question. And I think that the real answer to that, and this is where we can relate to your business, is you don't have to buy cheap meat and cheap products. You don't have to. We don't have to do those things either. And I think I see this a lot in the industry is we play this victim card. I'm victimized because I'm forced to do this and I'm forced to buy this, but we don't have to. We can actually take that step above, and we're gonna spend more on the product and spend more on the training and spend more on the equipment, but we get that individual decision. And the moment that we break ourselves away from that chain of that we're forced to is really when you get to see this freedom. Same thing that you guys did. And I think that's when you need to find the model, now that you're going to spend more money and deliver a product. You still have to be competitive. And that's what I really get excited about. And I'd probably love to ask you about 7,000 more questions. Right. But it's very exciting to see a model that has done that has taken that level and still is competitive in the market and still makes money. And that's what we want to do. So to answer that question, we don't have to. We certainly don't have to buy this product or do this type of thing. You can make that decision individually to sell and have higher quality.
Just one thought. It made me think of something that relates to Chipotle. I don't know how big your organization is, and so I don't know how much leverage you've got, but sometimes you have to take a stand you have to take a tough stand. And Chipotle had to do that about 4 years ago, before we had the latest incident. It was about early 2015, late 2014. We found out a pork supplier was not following our protocols. And we found this during an audit, and we went to them and said, we found these problems. What are we going to do to fix them? Well, the answer was, we don't really want to fix them. Okay? We think that we are going to treat the animals with antibiotics, and we think your protocols are wrong. Now, they never bothered to tell us this before, and so we said, oh, that's interesting. That means you can't be our supplier anymore. And we fired them. And we fired them on the spot. We took all the pork in our restaurants, in our distribution centers. We donated it. It was perfectly safe pork. It was delicious pork, okay? But it didn't meet all the protocols. And so we took a stand. Now, we didn't expect this, but the silver lining in that, our sales were lower because we now disappointed customers. And by the way, we were short by maybe 25, 30% of all of our pork supply needs. And we had a rolling blackout. So it wasn't a market that was completely out forever. It'd be a rolling blackout where maybe for 6 weeks, your market would be out. And then we roll the blackout to another market, just so that we spread the pain, I guess, to different customers. The media and customers in general applauded that move. And they saw that as, wow, here's a company that cares about us. They stand by what they say, even if it means hurting them financially. And Wall Street said, this is hurting them financially. And listen, I don't know how that relates, and it could be a good discussion for you guys, but if you have enough power, what I read out of the, or saw out of the CNN video, there's a pattern of certain insurers will only pay for the cheap parts, and others, like Hagerty, I use Hagerty. And I go to my body shop and say, if one of my babies gets wrecked, is Hagerty going to pay to get it back and use original parts? Is it OEM?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I have to ask
Find them.
if they can find them, but it goes, oh yeah, they will support finding them. They'll support fixing it the right way. They'll support bringing it back to the pristine condition that it was before. So guess what? I've got Hagerty for my insurance. You might have to take a stand against one of these insurers someday, and I don't know how big they are. I'm not even going to name them because I know there are some insurers in here, and so maybe I'm starting a food fight that will happen at lunch. But sometimes you have to take a stand. Now, what happens is taking that stand gets publicity. Okay, so that's not advertising. So listen, I hope you don't run out and do something rash. But when you have a purpose, when you have something you want to stand for, there are going to be times where the rubber meets the road and you're going to have to make a tough decision. And if you make the right decisions along the way, I believe it'll pay off in the long run. I think when you compromise on the things that matter most, like safety and like the quality of the parts and stuff like that, it's a slippery slope.
I'd like to talk to Billy's question as well. Thank you, Billy. It's a great question, by the way. And back to something that you have been stressing the whole time, it's about trust. And for us, you have to be able to convey that trust. And for us, everything that we do in our shop revolves around the guest experience. And it's the ingredients that go into that guest experience, like the right parts and looking up the right OEM procedures and all the rest of that stuff that support the perfect car that you're giving back to that person. It's about the guest experience, and you have to support that. Another thing that was said here today is that if somebody in the industry, whatever industry it is, could be flowers, could be food, could be anything, if they do bad things, it kind of tarnishes the whole industry. So if we can get more people in the industry focusing on the guest experience, I think it will be positive for everybody. It's the best answer I have.
I'm Gary Wano with GW and Sun Auto Body in Oklahoma City, also past chairman of SCRS. You mentioned earlier about some efficiencies you build within your operations. You make sure that you don't cheapen ingredients so the finished product stays at top quality. You reach into your P&L itself and bring the efficiencies based on P&L items, such as advertising. Once you've done that, you've come up with that fine mix of efficiencies that brings the return that you're looking for. When your costs increase yet again, and after you've already gone through all those P&L items, now where do you go to try to build those efficiencies?
Every now and then, we do have to raise prices. Okay? When the cost of every grocery item you buy goes up over time, you have to pass that along. A typical pattern for a restaurant company would be they do something every year. We increased prices last year. It was the first time in 3 years. So last time we did it was 2014. The last time we did it before that was 2011. And last time we did it before that was 2008 or 2009. So we don't nickel and dime the customers all the time. What we do is we'll be very patient. We'll try to find efficiencies, and kind of the last resort is to go raise prices to the customer. So we'll eat some of that pressure. Again, we're company owned, so we don't have franchisees. Franchisees might be feeling a lot more pressure, making bank debt payments and things like that. But we've been very, very patient, and it'll be kind of the last thing we do after we find efficiencies, after we see sometimes food cycles up and then cycles back down. We can afford to let it cycle up and then come back down. We can have, not that we want to have lower earnings, but we can have lower earnings during one period as long as we know it's going to recover the next. So yes, we have to raise prices, but we try to do it very thoughtfully and very, very diligently.
Terrific. To the panel, guys, I know you guys are all repairers, and you realize that adding cost or adding the additional cost to the sale, when we don't have the ability of being able to change the rate of repair or whatever the scenario would be, you can kind of see where we're kind of stuck in a bad position there. There is no choice for us to be able to increase that rate just based on increased costs and through market, unless market surveys, that kind of go. But anyway, it's just interesting. Thank you so much for your response.
Thank you.
David Willett, Intrepid Direct. Jack, I started eating Chipotle in about 2003, I think it was, in Chicago.
Which one?
It was one of the ones downtown. I was
Okay.
in there for a wedding.
Great.
Didn't even have it in Kansas City where I lived, but I probably eat about once a week, maybe max out 3 or 4 times a week at Chipotle. A lot of times
fantastic.
on the road. So I'm just letting you know there are people who support here.
Look how fit you look, too.
But
It's
anyway.
such a healthy meal, right?
Hey, well, that's one of the things. A lot of times I'm a person that on the go, and it allows me to eat something that's what I consider quality, and a lot of my family or business associates will enjoy. Anyway. But
That's great.
that
Thank you.
being said, to give you an idea that somebody, one of the things we've talked about here is evolving. And so I'm eventually going to get to the repairers answering this as well. But because you're always having to, you can't just stay as you are. You have to be able to take on new demands and new processes. And one of the things that you guys have had done recently is taking the orders online. And you've had to implement that in your store. I would love for you to talk about the thought process that you went through, and what you worried about, how it would impact the rest of your operations. And then what do you think you don't have to get into secrets of your success, because somebody who's been a long-time supporter of it, I've seen it to be a positive and a negative. It has bothered me to be in a store, and then the line slows down, and I find out it's because they're taking orders over the phone, and at the same time, if I'm on the go and think far enough ahead of time, I can order it and say I need to pick up one at some time. So I've seen it both ways. It really, so if
Well,
you
we have
get-
the solution for that.
well, good, because if you got an opportunity to talk about it, then I'd like the repairers to talk about bringing processes in and how they see it after you discuss it.
Great question. Second make, we call it second make line, so the digital or online, fastest growing part of our business. It's about 9% of our sales. It's growing at about 40% per year. We have, you may not know this, sometimes you can see this in the restaurant, we have a second make line. Like you see the line in the front? We have one of those in a condensed basis in the back as well. So
I've noticed that.
they should not be making that order, that's a phone in, on the front line. They should be making it in the back for the very reason you mentioned. 'Cause
That's a newer phase that I haven't seen everywhere, but yeah.
Yeah, so I would chalk that up to it's not by design, because that second make line is the safety valve. And by the way, we've been building those for 15, 20 years. We used to have fax orders. And so Chipotle used to be a great, I know faxes, do they exist anymore? I mean, but offices would get about 10 people together, and we had a fax form. You'd pass it along, you'd write your name and then exactly what your order is. And so that was a business that we had 15, 20 years ago. And we were putting in these second make lines for the very reason you mentioned. It's so important that our main line keep the flow. And as soon as you try to make another order, like in the middle, it slows down the whole line. As a customer, you're looking what's going on, then you realize somebody called ahead. It's a bad experience for everybody. So I would chalk that one up to just operations. We've got to continue to emphasize to our folks how important it is. It might seem like a hassle to them to set up the second make line, but it's a bigger hassle to the customer when you don't. And so that's what we've got to do, and we're committed to that. In fact, what you may not know is behind the scenes, we're also investing. We're replacing one by one. It'll take us a few years. All the second make lines that we already have, and we're digitizing them. And so rather than a piece of paper that would in the past print out, it's going to be on a screen. And so our teams can go about 30% faster. Their accuracy rates about 30% better as well. And so that's a win for our employees, win for the customers. And so we're going to continue to invest in it. So,
Well, I applaud you for taking on something that was, like you said, it's fastest growing, and yet you knew it could potentially irritate some of your existing, and at the same time you implemented it and you're working, those people that like a brand will hang in there with you through it. But if the repairers could talk about, from your standpoint, implementing something that you've implemented or thinking about and some of the thought processes like that, I'd love to hear you all talk about it as well.
I would just suggest a complete tear down of the car. We find that the main problems that we have is if we miss one little bolt or one clip, and that holds up the job, and it might hold up the job for 4 days, and customers are not happy. I mean, you talk about putting an order through in 12 seconds. Well, I wish we had those kind of numbers to think about, but no, I would say a complete tear down and really itemizing all your parts is the biggest factor in getting a car in and done.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
I'd like to take one spin, not something that we're doing currently, but something we'd like to add. You talk about bonusing or your dividends on the best 20%. Let's say I want to do that. How did you make it so simple that they knew we want to be the best team? Obviously, we want to hit those marks. How did you make it to where everybody in that store knew this is what we have to do to get there?
Well, I wish I could say everyone in every store knows that. I'm sure that there is a wide variety of managers who are really sharp that are on it and sat down right away, and some managers who read the email and then didn't. We did try to keep it simple. We've had more complicated bonus plans in the past, and we kept it simple to just 3 measures. Okay, customer satisfaction, which one thing we did last year, we now get 20 to 25 customer comments per restaurant per month. Okay, versus we used to have mystery shops. I don't know if mystery shop's something in your industry where somebody would bring in a fake car repair or something.
Yep.
But it's fake customers who come through and they will report how our team was doing. But that was once a month and it was a fake customer. Now we get 20 to 25 or so of real customers every single month. And so the customer satisfaction piece is legitimate and they can fix it right away. If they see a customer comment come in that they were out of rice or the restaurant wasn't clean, they can get that comment within a day or two and they can fix it right away. And then the other two pieces, restaurant, the sales and the cash flow, are pretty simple. And so a well-trained manager, that's a pretty simple format for them to communicate. But I'm sure with 2,400 managers, there's some that probably did a better job than others. It's a constant battle.
Okay.
We've got 70,000 employees, and so we're constantly training and retraining and communicating all the time. That job will never be done.
Roger Wright with Vector Squared. Being a public company and reporting quarterly up to your shareholders, how do you balance that food for integrity and profit for me? Probably analysis they kind of look for. Is that a balance?
It's a great question. You got to deliver, and so the returns that I showed you before. If we went to Wall Street and said we're gonna do, let's say the industry returns on a new restaurant is 30%. We're at 40 to 45. If we went to them and says we're going to deliver 20% returns, and they're lower because we're investing in this food. And if we didn't have a vision for how that 20 is going to grow to 25 and then 30, then 40, then 50, Wall Street wouldn't accept it. Wall Street, capital will flow where it's put to its best use. And so that's why our business model and having that sustainability, it allows us to invest in the higher quality food and have higher margins, not sacrificing margins, higher margins and higher returns. And that's the only way you can do it. I couldn't sell to Wall Street why they should accept lower returns. There's a lot of investing houses out there that say they're socially minded investors, but they want a return. Okay, they want them both. And if you went to them and said, we're going to do everything you want socially, but you're going to get a lower return, hope you're okay with that, they're not okay with that.
Yeah, not so much.
So that's why the business model for yes, we're a public company, but it's the same for any company. If you have to sacrifice margins, in order to follow your purpose, it's a hard road to do it. That's why in our model, and I would just encourage you in your model, look at the areas that aren't as visible to the customer. Don't look at the essence of what you give the customer. Look at things that are on the fringes that they don't care that much about. Look at your employee base, like we talked about before. If you have people that aren't carrying their weight, there's opportunity for efficiency. And by the way, when you swap out the mediocre one for the great one, way better customer service. So anyway, I can't work that magic. I couldn't convince Wall Street to take a lower return for food with integrity. That's why I had to help. And I've been with Chipotle, by the way. I didn't say this since 2002. So I was there from the beginning. I came from McDonald's. So I saw the big company, and I wanted to come and help a little company turn into a big company. And so we had time to build this business model around our vision, and it didn't happen overnight.
So these have been great, and I have one more question that I'm going to ask for you, Jack, and then I'll let each of you can kind of go through maybe some closing thoughts or remarks. It's interesting to me because a lot of this presentation has gone back and forth between marketing and finance, and kind of the where the two merge to create a sustainable business, right? And your video, I love it. It's really untraditional, and it gets across your culture without selling your products, right? And it made me think of a presentation I sat through with Matthew Lund, who was a storyteller for Pixar, who talked about their job not being to just write animated movies, but to actually take people through these emotional journeys. And what they're responsible for is making grown men cry at a cartoon, right? By telling the story in the right way that brings their emotions up and down. And I think you guys certainly took advantage of some of those storytelling practices in that video. My question is, as a corporation who doesn't place a large emphasis on marketing and putting financial resources towards that, have you found that there are certain areas that are a better investment for you to change the consumer perspective if you're only going to put limited resources towards doing so?
Yeah, the thing that we've invested instead is our food. In terms of a better approach to getting the word out, PR is the other one, but PR is very difficult nowadays. PR used to be, if you had relationships with the main networks and the main papers, you could pitch a story and they play along. Now with the internet, information travels so freely, misinformation travels just as freely as real information or real facts. So over the years, we've frankly just invested in the thing that we thought would matter the most to our customers. We did, over the last couple of years, we did increase our investment in marketing a bit. We're going to pull back a little bit because we felt like telling people, it's kind of back to my story about the two spouses, telling people is less important than showing them. And so if we have new news in the restaurant, whether it's nachos or just something to cause people, oh God, Chipotle's got something new, I should go try it. And if we deliver on the experience, if we deliver a great experience when they come in to try something new, hopefully they come back, and then they come back, and they come back. There's no substitute. Marketing can't substitute for an extraordinary experience. Word of mouth happens when you deliver an extraordinary experience as well. So I think there's not a magic bullet to pull back from marketing other than invest in what matters to the company, invest in a great experience. And then I think when you complement that with the right amount of credible advertising, not cheesy, I don't believe that advertising, but credible, informational advertising, I think you have something special. So.
Fantastic, thank you. Any final thoughts? Rob?
It's an honor to be here and be part of this incredible organization, and I look forward to a lot more. Thank you for your insight today.
My pleasure.
I've been learning a lot, and it's taking me down some different roads. We'll see where they go. But it's all about the guest. It's all about trust.
Matt.
One final question. You spoke about coming from McDonald's, big corporation, and then you came into Chipotle early, small, built it big. Are you willing to do it one more time and come work with us?
Nice. Nice.
That's a great question. You got the wrong guy. You should hire Matt. My son Matt is he's just got a natural knack to it. But no, listen. Thank you for that. I'll take that as a compliment. You won't believe how I could fumble up things. Listen. I know the numbers and spreadsheets and things like that. When something's broken in my house, I'm calling my 25-year-old son Matt to come over and fix it. So.
Jack, any final thoughts you want people to leave with?
Listen, I appreciate the risk you guys took to invite a restaurant guy to come and talk to you guys. I had a ball. I learned through this process more about your business, some of your challenges. I can have now a better conversation with Matt about some of the things he does. He's not in collision, but he's still in the industry. When I go to see how my babies are doing, I know a little bit more. And so I just appreciate you guys took a risk, invited me here. I had a blast. And Aaron, thank you for inviting me. And Jeff, thanks for thinking out of the box in terms of bringing a guy that normally wouldn't belong in this meeting. So thank you.
How about a giant round of applause?